So you want to buy a property out of area, but how do you manage the refurb? Maybe you're like me around 10 years ago where I wanted to buy a property but I couldn't afford it in my area. It could be a number of other situations. For me, I was living in London, I wanted to buy property, I was obsessed with Homes Under the Hammer. I was like, where can I invest? And the only location that I could find was in the northwest, number 36 Burdett Street in Burnley. Now the reason why I invested there is a 3-bed terrace property was £21,800. After about 9 months of driving 240 miles up, sleeping in the van over the weekend, driving back down to university, back and forth, somebody broke into the house, ripped everything out in my work, ended up losing money on the property. Boo-hoo. And that's why I started to double down, educating myself on how to actually manage these refurbishments, and then created Aspire Property Group, my property company, to help people do it remotely. But how can you do it yourself? First of all, you need to get an understanding of the numbers in the area. So when I talk to London-based investors, for example, and I talk about refurbishing a 3-bedroom property, even maybe you've seen some of the videos on here when I'm going through the properties, and I'm like, I refurbed this 3-bed property for £19,200, and people in London are like, bullshit, and then you can't even get a kitchen down there, right? And some of my mentees say this, that in London the same refurbishment would be like £60,000. Up here, you can buy a bloody house for 60 grand, right? That's not even a joke, by the way. So it's understanding your area. Now, people make this common misconception that it's going to be drastically different. It's just, well, no, it's the difference in quality, and it's not drastic. If you go to Howdens, you can get a cheap kitchen for about £1,300. You can also go to Howdens and get a £12,000 kitchen, or you can go to a German imported kitchen and pay £35,000. It's really going to depend on your end customer. Now, majority of what we do, we're investing for buy-to-let properties. So what we want something that looks good, is durable, decent quality, and we know we're going to replace it in 10 to 15 years. So we need to be cost conscious. It's the same with labour. A bricklayer up here in Leeds, you're going to end up paying about £180 a day. Down south, it's more like 300 and something pounds a day. Depending on where you are, I know some bricklayers in London getting around £400 a day. What? So it is different, but not as drastic as people think. I think people think somebody paid £200 a day bricklaying in London is going to get 30 pence in Leeds. It doesn't quite add up like that. So know your numbers, know your area, and know your spec. Talking about spec, you need a sheet that is going to represent the overall spec of the property. Now, you can't just say good quality. Well, good quality on a refurb could be a £100,000 refurb, or you could get a good quality refurbishment for a £15,000 investment. It really depends. Same as basic touch-up, or let's say a bit of a tart-up, that might be carpets and paint. Well, what carpets? Carpets in one of my properties cost me £1,500, and one of my high-end properties, it cost me £6,000. You really need to be clear on what outcome. So by providing a spec sheet to your builders, to your project manager, they are going to be able to fulfill to that quality level. And you might think, well, a good paint job is a good paint job. No, you get a painter that goes around for the council, it is spraying the walls with paint and walking out with drips, everything like that, because that's the standard that's expected of them. If you want a really good paint job, it's going to take time. The next thing you need is a bill of quantities. Now, bill of quantities is just a name really, but you need to understand exactly what room and phases they're going to cost. For example, the rip out, where they rip everything out of the property, is usually the first phase, and you need to understand, okay, what is that going to cost? How many skips is that going to be? How much is a skip? And the reason for this is twofold. Number one, you can keep people accountable to this. But also, once you've done 2 or 3 refurbishments, you'll really get an understanding of when things go wrong during the rip out, first fix, second fix, etc., where does it cost the most money? Now, for example, I know in the rip out stage, costs can start mounting up, and the big reason is skips. Skips cost a lot of money, and it's very easy to think something's going to be 6 skips, but it ends up being 9. For me, that's a really good indication of what's to come, because if my builder or project manager has messed it up at the beginning, it's likely they're going to mess up as you're going through, which is not ideal. The next thing you want to think about is, when are you going to check in? And I've learned this a lot in my business, that even if somebody knows how to do something, even if they know what high quality is, if anything takes longer than 2 to 3 days, you have to have a feedback cycle, including myself, by the way. And what we're trying to develop in the business is a weekly meeting now on projects. And we started doing that more and more with the refurbishments. So each week it's, here's where you're meant to be in terms of how far in the project you're meant to be. Here's how much you are meant to have spent, how much have you spent, and where are you in the project? And what it does is it gives them a level of accountability. It's also a lot easier on a 12-week project to check in 12 times to make sure the builder is still being quality focused and cost conscious all the way through the project, to minimize the snagging list at the end. If you don't know what snagging is, it's when the builder says the property's done, and then when you go in and actually tell them what needs to be done, to be done. No offense, builders, if you're watching this. But the reason is they've moved on to the next project, and those little snagging lists can be left way too long. Imagine a 12-week refurbishment, all of those different work people going in and out of the property, and then you go in and go, whoa, I didn't want the plug there, I wanted it over there. I told you I don't want the pipe exposed there, it needs to go into the wall. And then they go, well, it's already been plastered. So what do you do in that situation? So you need to make sure you've got your check-ins and sign off as you go through. Quick tip on this, I love the app Site Audit Pro. It's not a sponsor of the channel or anything like that. One-off payment, and then when you're going around doing these checks, you can take a photo on your phone, it comes up, and then you can write notes about what you don't like about it. And then you could do that for the entire house, and then you can send it off as a Site Audit Pro PDF for your builder to download, print out, and then go around the property and fix it up. Next is contracts. Now, I know contracts are so boring and costly sometimes, but I can promise you the cost of ignorance costs you a lot more than the cost of a contract. The reason for this, and it's not just there are some people that are going to screw you over, cue back to Burdett Street there, story for another time, but it's really about what's the agreement. There are times all the time, even with friends, where you think you've communicated something quite effectively, or maybe they think they've communicated something effectively, and then a week later you go, oh, do you remember what I was telling you about that? No. Oh, I thought you meant this. Happens countless times. And it's people that I know, like, and trust. Even Alex gets it wrong. He's shaking his head. He does. So people get things wrong, and it's not that it's deliberate, but you have to think, if you're doing a full refurb, that's going to be 12 weeks. Okay, that's 84 days of opportunity for somebody to forget what you said here, and then in 12 weeks when you're going, I said this, did you? Where? And then you either just have to accept that it's happened, or you're scrolling like that through your WhatsApps and everything like that just to prove the other person wrong, which, by the way, learnt from that, not a good way to maintain a good relationship. Obviously, right? So instead, you sit down, you draw up a contract. A more formal one might be called a JCT contract, but in general, I like to do a blank bit of paper and just go, right, let's really brief out the spec, the timelines, and the cost of everything that we're agreeing to, everything you're responsible for, everything I'm responsible for, and the timeline of when you get paid. For example, we have our phases broken down step by step, and they know that they need to finish a phase. We send somebody around to sign it off that we're happy with it, and that is when they get paid for the next phase moving forward. Finally, project management. Now, I know project managers can be costly, between 10 and 20% of the project, which on, you know, a £20,000 refurbishment can take it up to 23, 24,000. But I promise you, price is what you pay, value is what you get, and none is more true than with a project manager. Why would you try to manage an entire refurbishment remotely when you can get somebody else to do it for you? Have those check-ins on the standards that you've set up front. The reason why I say this is some people go, I saved $3,000, and it's like, yeah, okay, but how did you project manage it? Because they didn't go up on the weekend, because most of the work people go home, or trades go home, so they came up on Monday every other week. Great. So you came up Monday every other week. From where? From London. So you drove up from London, did your stuff, drove back. So it cost you, whatever that is, about 400 miles of fuel and depreciation on the vehicle. But more importantly, you took a day off work to go and do that. Did that not cost you more than the £3,000? And let's face it, the reason why you're getting other people to do it is you don't know what you're doing. So my opinion is get a great project manager to manage everything that's going on there and use their time to make you money. So hopefully that's helped. It's just some top tips. And by the way, if you have got 100,000, maybe you live in London, maybe you're watching this from Hong Kong or another country, and you're thinking, I want to invest in property, but I don't have a team. Well, that's what Aspire Property Group is about. We find you the property, source it, negotiate it, get it through legals, refurbish it, and now we've also got an in-house letting agency, so we manage the entire process. If you want to be a part of that and you've got 100 grand and you want to find out more, put APG in the comments below and we'll be in touch. If you're new to the channel and you want to find out more about property investing, make sure to lightly tap the subscribe button, destroy the notification bell, hit the like, and I'll see you in the next video.